It's a sweltering summer evening in America, the kind where the air hangs heavy with unspoken worries, and as I sit here scrolling through the endless stream of news alerts on my phone, each one hits like a punch to the gut, painting a portrait of an economy that's not just stumbling but plummeting headfirst into chaos, while the man at the helm, Donald Trump, struts around like a peacock in a storm, declaring victory at every turn, even as the data screams that our nation is teetering on the brink of something truly catastrophic. Over the past 11 days alone, we've been bombarded with economic reports that aren't just disappointing, they're downright horrifying, each one peeling back another layer of the facade we've all been clinging to, revealing a system that's rotting from the inside out. And yet, in the midst of this deluge of bad news, Trump has slapped new tariffs on countries across the globe, boasting about how he's single-handedly reviving American manufacturing, when in reality, his policies are accelerating the very decline he's pretending to fix. Let me take you back to how this all unfolded, starting with that fateful jobs report that dropped like a bomb, shattering any illusions of stability we might have harbored, showing unemployment ticking up in ways that economists had warned about but hoped would materialize so brutally. And as I read through the details, my heart sank because it wasn't just numbers on a page. These were real lives being upended, families staring at empty dinner tables, wondering how they'd make ends meet in a country that's supposed to be the land of opportunity. And it's not isolated. Every metric we've seen lately points to the same grim truth. Consumer spending is drying up as people hunker down, terrified of what tomorrow might bring. Manufacturing plants are grinding to a halt under the weight of skyrocketing costs, and businesses are slashing jobs left and right, all while the stock market occasionally spikes just enough to let the talking heads proclaim that everything's fine. But we know better, don't we? Because down here, in the trenches of everyday America, the story is one of quiet desperation, where folks are juggling multiple gigs just to keep the lights on, and medical bills loom like dark clouds ready to unleash a torrent of bankruptcy. Now, dive deeper with me into the heart of this mess, where Trump's tariffs, meant to be the magic bullet for bringing jobs back home, have instead backfired spectacularly. And as I mentioned over the weekend in one of my rants that probably kept you up thinking, the executive order was so sloppily drafted that it ended up doubling the tariffs on many goods and countries, not just hiking them by 25% but pushing them over 40% in some cases, leaving us doubly burdened because, let's face it, when you're already struggling to afford basics, the last thing you need is imported essentials becoming even pricier overnight. I can almost hear the echoes of boardroom meetings where captains of industry, those titans who steer the economic ship, are sounding the alarm, predicting massive downturns and laying off thousands in anticipation, their voices joining a chorus of economists and data analysts who pore over spreadsheets late into the night, concluding without a shadow of doubt that things are bad now and poised to get exponentially worse. Yet Trump takes to his podium or his social media pulpit, crowing about an amazing economy, a thriving job market, and how his tariffs are the savior of American manufacturing, which brings us right to the latest data that's emerged in these turbulent 11 days, data that exposes the lie in stark, unforgiving terms. According to the reports I've been devouring, like that eye-opening piece from the Wall Street Journal just the other day, the American manufacturing sector, the very one Trump claims is booming thanks to his interventions, is actually sputtering and dying a slow death, with companies grappling with inflated costs for critical materials like steel, aluminum, and copper, materials that form the backbone of so much production. And from March straight through to July, U.S. manufacturing activity didn't just slow, it contracted outright, as evidenced by the Institute for Supply Management's monthly survey, where the manufacturing PMI dipped to a dismal 48, well below the 50 threshold that separates growth from decline. A number that might seem abstract until you connect it to the real-world stories of giants like Whirlpool, Polaris, and Harley-Davidson, whose leaders are openly admitting that consumer demand has cratered in recent months because everyday people, squeezed by these tariffs, are pulling back on spending, choosing to forego that new appliance or that dream motorcycle in favor of socking away whatever they can for the inevitable rainy day. Take Polaris CEO Mike Speetzen, for instance, who laid it bare during a recent earnings call, explaining to investors that consumers are incredibly reluctant to part with their money right now unless it's an absolute necessity or they're among the lucky few with financial wiggle room. And as I reflect on his words, it hits home how this reluctance is rippling through the entire economy, shrinking consumer spending, stalling manufacturing lines, and triggering job cuts in nearly every sector, except healthcare, because no matter how broke we are, illnesses don't take a hiatus, and in a twisted irony, our fractured healthcare system is only amplifying these woes, forcing people to hoard their savings against the specter of medical emergencies that remain the top cause of bankruptcy in this so-called prosperous nation, where buying a Whirlpool washer-dryer or splurging on a Harley feels like a luxury from another era, while the fear of a hospital bill hangs over every decision like a guillotine. We've been teetering on this edge for decades. I won't deny it. Our economy has long been a house of cards, propped up by occasional stock market highs that politicians and pundits hail as proof of greatness, even as low unemployment masks the reality of underemployment, with millions piecing together part-time jobs to scrape by and bankruptcies from medical debts pile up like autumn leaves, turning us into what feels like a banana republic masquerading as a global superpower, all cosplay and no substance, where the streets tell a different tale from the glossy reports out of Washington or Wall Street, a tale of death and decay beneath the surface, of joblessness hidden in plain sight, of folks grinding through 18-hour days just to afford basic dignity, let alone a doctor's visit. Trump didn't invent this nightmare, that's for sure. He doesn't get the credit for architecting a system so fundamentally broken, but he's accelerating its collapse in ways that boggle the mind, turning a simmering crisis into a full-blown inferno with his misguided tariffs and delusional bravado. And as I wrap my head around all this data, forgetting for a moment the sheer incompetence at the top, it becomes crystal clear that America is at a crossroads, staring into the abyss of economic ruin, while being told to celebrate the view. And it's up to us, the people living this reality, to demand better, to peel away the phoniness and fight for an economy that works for everyone, not just the elite playing dress-up. So, if this story resonates with you, if you've felt the pinch in your own wallet or seen it in your community, drop a comment below sharing your thoughts. Have Trump's policies hit you hard, or do you see glimmers of hope amid the gloom? And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button to join me as we unpack more of these critical issues, because together, we can shine a light on the truth and push for the change our nation so desperately needs.